Hello, everyone. Welcome to TB Wrestling. This is my new channel completely dedicated to wrestling. Today, we have episode 3 of the Tell Your Story series, and today we have British wrestler Ryan Matthews. Ryan, how are you doing today?
Very well, thank you. How are you?
I'm lovely. So, first off, I just want to give you a chance to kind of give everyone a background on who you are and how you got into pro wrestling.
Okay, cool. I go by Ryan Matthews, and I've been wrestling for WAW, which is World Association of Wrestling, based in Norwich. I've been wrestling with them for just over a year now, actually. We're a small wrestling, well, not small, but a wrestling promotion based out in Norwich, in England. And that's the basis of it, really. I've loved wrestling since I was little, so, finally get in there and do it, it's a dream come true.
Mm-hmm. So everyone has their own story with how they got into wrestling and then how they got into actually training. So first of all, tell me how you, at least how you remember getting into pro wrestling in the first place as a fan.
Well, to be fair, it's been quite a while. Like, there's quite a big gap between how long I've, been watching and then compared to when I've been training. Mm-hmm. I think the way I discovered it was kind of similar to how a lot of people do, just sitting there channel surfing, and then all of a sudden an episode of Monday Night Raw pops up, and I'm like, there's two guys beating the crap out of each other. What's going on here? And I'm like, okay, start watching it, getting the feel of it. And to be honest, I was hooked from then. Carried on starting to follow it. Once you get that first taste of it, you start kind of like delving into the history of it a bit more. So, once I found Raw, I found SmackDown, and then when was this? This was probably about 2007. So there wasn't really like too much else going on, or too many other like promotions that were as big. Although saying that as well, like channel surfing again, and I found TNA, and straight away I'm like glued to the fact, hang on, they've got a 6-sided ring. I'm like, where does this come from? Like, what do they do? And then, you kind of make the link when you see like guys from TNA on WWE and then vice versa. So yeah, I've found it once on TV and, haven't turned it off since. So that's kind of my discovery of it.
And then how did you decide that you were going to train to be a pro wrestler? And did you have any pushback from family members or friends when you decided, yeah, this is what I want to do?
Well, it was kind of like one of those things where, like, obviously when you're younger, you have that dream job that you want to do. And for me, it was that. I've always wanted to, go out and, be a pro wrestler. So there was quite a long gap, obviously, between that and then eventually coming down to training because, when you're younger, you don't really, have the resources to. And I wasn't aware that, WAW was the closest promotion to me to actually train. So there was quite a bit of a gap. So I think it took to when I'd left college, I was like, starting to get into like, I found myself a job and everything. I was just thinking, is this really what I want to be doing? And I, started delving into it a bit more, discovered WAW, and I was like, yeah, well, they train and there's no harm in trying. So, I went down for one of the beginner sessions, and it's funny, like as soon as I took a bump, I was like, yeah, this is exactly what I want to do. This is it for me. So, in terms of pushbacks though, I guess you kind of have that, there's obviously the cliches with everyone who's not really into wrestling where, why, it's fake and all this stuff. But like, I think what they don't really realize is that we're fully aware, like, what it is. And that doesn't put you off at all. Like, if anything, it just makes it more interesting because there's like so much to it and so much like, in terms of like what goes on backstage and, how stories come together and everything. Like, so, there was obviously a bit of pushback because not a lot of my friends really like wrestling and really understand it. So they're obviously like, well, why do you want to go and pretend to get beaten up and all this? And like, oh, all right. But,
and I'm sure you've had to tell them over and over again, I'm not pretending to get beat up. I actually am getting beat up. and I know it's going to happen because that's how it's laid out.
I think the most common question I get is as well is like, so do you know exactly like move for move, what's going to happen and who's going to win and all this? It's like, you can't really be bothered to explain it to them because it's just like, well, just enjoy it for what it is. Like, I think a lot of people enjoy it for the fact that you don't know who's going to win, and obviously you want to see where these stories are going to go. So it's like anything on TV, really. Like, you don't sit there and think like, oh, say you're watching an episode of Walking Dead, you're like, oh, that's not a real zombie. Why am I going to watch that? He's not real. Like, you're just in it for the story, and you're in it for the fact that, it combines really good storytelling, well, when it wants to, and like really good storytelling with obviously the athletic side and the sports side of it. So
Did you have a background in any other sort of athletic pursuits prior to doing pro wrestling? Did you study like any martial arts, or were there any particular sports that you played that you think, or did you like ever do like any acting classes, things that prepared you to do pro wrestling?
I think the closest thing I came to like anything actually preparing me for wrestling was actually I did box a fair bit. I did get quite into boxing when I was younger, but I kind of quickly realised that was always kind of like a substitute. So like obviously I still watch boxing and I still appreciate it now, but like the amount of time, like when I turned up to training, I was like, you see a boxing ring in the corner, I'm like, oh, I'd love to spring off the ropes or something like that. Like, no, I can't really. Or like, I wonder what it'd be like to take a bump, like stuff like that. But it's one of those things where like boxing, the people who do it take it really seriously and it's what they want to do. And I was like, well, if I want to wrestle, then there's no point in me, half-assing it and then, doing something that I don't really want to do as much as wrestling. So I guess that kind of prepared me for it in terms of like the training and like the physical aspect. But that's about it really in terms of preparation, I guess.
So let's go back. It's your first day of training.
Yeah.
What's going through your head?
These guys are massive. What have I done? Is this going to actually really hurt? Like, because obviously I know I saw what you said, like what Jared said to you, and like obviously it's quite daunting when you first turn up and like you don't really know anyone, and like obviously there's some elements to it in terms of like the bumps and stuff where you do it safely, but you obviously don't, like that first bump you can't expect like if it's going to hurt and all that sort of stuff. So there was that first fear of is it really going to like hurt me? I'm actually going to be able to walk out of training and all this stuff. I don't know, like it quickly became apparent to me like everyone's there to help each other, and especially where I train as well, like you automatically feel really welcomed, and like the teacher is fully aware of, or the trainer is fully aware of the fact that you're new, so they're not going to like shove you in there with someone who's done it for like 10 years and be like, give me a 5-star match. It's never going to be anything like that. It's just
Yeah. So in kind of the research that I've kind of done, just looking both with you and Joe, where you train, like with the Knight family, seems to just have such a huge background in British wrestling. What makes their training different than maybe some of the other places you could have trained in the UK?
I think it's just the almost their experience side of it as well, because like because they've been in the British wrestling scene for so long, they've got such a different look on it all. Like some of our head trainers have been going at it for like 20, 30 years, so they've seen where British pro wrestling was, and then they've seen where it comes now, and they've kind of learned all the tricks of the trade, and they've really seen like those crop of guys come up and stuff like that. So it's really cool because you get taught stuff that you probably wouldn't expect to be taught in other places. So like the old school sort of British style of wrestling, but they also incorporate it with the new stuff. So you kind of get the best of both worlds, where you get the new style of wrestling along with some of the classic British stuff that a lot of people don't tend to use now. So it does definitely make your training different, and it's a good way as well to just make sure when you're actually out there wrestling, you've got something to show that some of us might not.
So you've had a handful of matches, right?
Yeah.
What was your first match, and in that match, what is the adjustment period like? Because I'm sure in training you have a lot of times where you have like match like situations, but of course there's not the pressure of the crowd. What was one thing going through your mind during your first match where you're like, oh, so this is a little different than I thought it was going to be, and I have to adjust my style to be like this?
Well, yeah, my first match was a singles with someone else I trained with, and we actually got paired up together because we got on so well in training. So in terms of like being comfortable who I was in the ring with, I felt like I was ready to go out there and show what we could do, because I felt really comfortable with him and stuff. But I think a big part of it is just like getting used to performing in front of a crowd, because while you've got to obviously focus on your opponent and keeping each other safe, and obviously making sure the match goes well. Like, you have to incorporate the crowd as well, and that was something like, even as soon as I walked out and did my entrance, I was like, oh my god, all these people are looking at me. So it's just like, because they're as big as part of the crowd as the wrestlers in the ring. Like, you've got to incorporate them, and make them involved. Otherwise, they're just not going to pay attention to what you're doing. So I think that's still something I'm adjusting to now. To be honest, it's like, incorporating the crowd. Making them, like, making sure they can see everything you're doing, making sure they can see what you want them to see in the match and stuff like that, and just making sure it comes across who's the face, who's the heel, stuff like that. It's just, yeah, I was, in terms of like being out in front of the crowd, that was that it's an unreal experience, but at the same time, it's such a big thing that I think it's going to take time for anyone to get used to. And it's, like I said, it's still something I'm getting used to now, where you just got to get used to it, incorporating these people into the match with you, listening to what they're saying, make sure they're getting involved, just stuff like that, really.
So you mentioned the face and heel dynamic. Yeah. I know everyone, when they're a kid, pictures themselves, their first wrestling character, coming out and knowing exactly what your character is going to be, and probably tells himself, okay, I'd be an amazing face or an amazing heel. Do you have one sort of disposition that you think either you're better at than the other? Like, do you think, oh, I'm a really good face, or, oh man, I'd make a really nasty heel?
Well, yeah, that's something we kind of practice in training a lot as well. Like, I feel like a lot of people are very comfortable on the idea of being a heel, just because you can, like, I feel like some people might see it a lot easier to wind up the crowd rather than, get them to cheer for you. It's a lot easier to, like, shout some abuse at them and get a boo, where, getting them behind you takes a lot of time and takes them to, really get invested with you. But in terms of the face and heel stuff, yeah, I've imagined myself being like the big old face and, the big crowd pleaser moment where I finally win the big one and all that stuff. But yeah, now that obviously, like, you get to study both sides of it, I think I would like to try both and just see, which one fits me, because I think, to make a success of it, you've got to be able to, like, work with that and be able to work to what's asked of you. So say one night you're asked to go out there and be the heel, you've got to, be able to do it. So yeah, it's quite an interesting dynamic to have to, like, incorporate into your matches and stuff. But yeah, it's something that it plays a lot on my mind, like, which direction do I want to go to in terms of, like, the face and heel. But obviously I'm a big fan of the heels, but it's tough. It's tough to decide.
So one of the matches that I've always figured would just be fascinating to be involved with is a battle royal. And I know you've been involved with some battle royals. What is it like being involved in a battle royal? And what's it like having to keep all the aspects of the match in your head? Because it's not just you're with one people, you have tons of other people that you have to work with, and everyone has to do their job for it to work right.
Yeah. It's some people might think, it's a bit easier, obviously, because you're not focusing on the single one-on-one match, and obviously it's not, your objective is to throw someone over the top rope, so you're not expected to do like the big match sequences and stuff like that. But it is obviously, because there's so many of you in the ring at one time, you have to, be aware of who's in the ring with you, what's your planned finish. Yeah, there's a lot of aspects to take in. Like, my first match was actually a battle royal, so I had my singles match, and then earlier, just before the show started, they were like, "Oh, we're a bit short numbers for a battle royal, so could you do that as well?" So I actually did double duty on my first night, but it was handy, because doing the battle royal first, I kind of knew what to expect with the crowd and going out there and what that'd feel like. But I've been in most of my matches now, they've been mainly battle royals, but each time, like, you always want to do something a bit different. So you don't want to obviously have a match where it's just the traditional, throw them over the top rope. You want to, keep people guessing, because obviously there's so many of you. You want people to be guessing, like, who's going to win, how's he going to get eliminated, how's he going to, stay in the match, and all this sort of stuff. So yeah, it's quite a lot to keep in the back of your mind when you're in those matches.
One thing I've always wondered, because of course, with the matches being determined, when you're told, okay, I'm going to be the one to take the pin in this match, or I'm going to be the one to lose, How do you set yourself up knowing, okay, yes, I'm going to lose, but I need to make the most of the situation? What do you tell yourself so that even though you're going to be the one taking the loss, you get the most out of it?
I think that's obviously something a lot of like people training probably do worry about actually. Like, am I going to be one of those wrestlers who just goes out and loses all the time? But I'd say you'd be surprised, like when in terms of like planning a match, that's normally like the last thing you discuss. Like, I think the main important thing is that you have a good match. Like, even if you're losing, I'd rather lose and be like, wow, that was a really good match. Because 9 times out of 10, if you have a really good match, they're not going to hold it against you that you lost. They're just going to be like, wow, that's like you think about some of the top guys, they probably list off matches that are like the best in their career. They might have lost them, but like, you just got to remember, like, as long as you put a really good performance out there, that's what people are going to remember. They're not going to hold the fact that, you may have lost. It's going to be, that was a really close match. It had me guessing non-stop who was going to win, or even like, I want to see them two fight again. So it may come down the line where you're not the one losing. So, I think a lot of, one of the things you've got to really focus on is the fact that you want to have a good match regardless of if you're going to win or lose. You just want to make sure that, and to be honest, the best feeling you're going to have is coming, going to the back after a match and being like, I had a really good match, and like having people tell you like you had a really good match and things went really well. Like, losing is obviously, it does count in a way because you don't want to be the one who loses all the time. But at the same time, like, I think the idea of having a really good match trumps the idea of, losing, in my opinion.
Awesome. So is there a certain match that you're like, I want to have this style of match? Like, are you like, man, I just want to get involved in a ladder match, or I really want to try my hands at an Iron Man match? Is there a certain stipulation that you're just really wanting to give it a go?
See, that's the thing. I'm obviously like playing the games and stuff. Like, you play all these stipulations, you're like, oh, that'd be really cool to try. And to be honest, I'm quite happy to be able to try all of them. Like, obviously, like you said, ladder matches sounds really cool. Even just like a cage match, or like testing yourself with an Ironman match, because you've got to go out there at least for like 30 to 60 minutes and put on you've got to be able to put on a match for that long. Like, that's a test in itself, let alone the match type. So yeah, obviously I'd love to do some like the gimmicky matches, like ladders, maybe even hardcore stuff like that, just to say that I've tried them out and I've had a go at it, because a lot of people try these gimmick matches, and there's might be a chance where you become well known for them if it's a stipulation that suits your character. So I'd say, yeah, I'd love to try like ladder matches, steel cage, Iron Man, stuff like that. Just some of the stuff that I wouldn't want to just try it, just to say I've done it as well. I'd love it to be part of like maybe like a big rivalry as well, because I feel like obviously with WWE now you have a lot of pay-per-views where it's centered around a gimmick match like TLC, Hell in a Cell, but I think those best matches for that sort of stipulation are ones where it's like it's important to the rivalry. So if I was having like a really good rivalry with someone and then I was able to finish it off with like a really good steel cage match, then yeah, that'd be something I'd love to do.
So you are currently in a faction with Joe and 2 other people, is that correct?
Yeah, so we've got a bit of a group chat going where we're kind of like fantasy booking stuff, and it's really cool because obviously we all train together, so it's quite, I think when you bond over something like wrestling, like it just makes it more fun. And like Joe said, we've talked about match ideas, like stuff we could do if we were to become a faction, because obviously this isn't like guaranteed. At the end of the day, we've just we're all good mates, and we've just decided it'd be really cool to try this. And I mean, we've got some good ideas, and it's definitely something I'd be up for trying. Yeah, it's a really cool idea. I do rate it, to be fair.
Awesome. So what's the best piece of advice you have been given by either one of your trainers or a fellow professional wrestler that you kind of hold close to your heart as something that you follow on a daily basis?
I'd say, surprisingly, it'd be slow down, because you'd see a lot, obviously, some of the matches in the big promotions now are very fast-paced, but you'd be surprised, like, with some matches, how little is enough. Like, you don't want to give people too much. And that's obviously the case in training as well, because, like, especially when you're in that position where you've just started training. You know, you're going through the moves you learn and stuff like that, and you're very fast paced. You want to make everything slick, and you want obviously everything to gel well together. But at the end of the day, like just keeping everything, like slowing everything down, having your moments, you know, where you pick up the pace, it just makes the match more interesting. And like, you don't want to be in that position where like everything's so fast paced and like 2 minutes, your entire match you've planned out is finished, and you're like, hang on, I've got another 4 to 6 minutes, and I've got to fill that out with a match that I've just got, you know, I've just gone through in 2 minutes. So I'd say slow down is a really big piece of advice that I've taken into account with like the trainers I've trained with, because even now sometimes, you know, it's hard to, you know, keep in the back of your mind that you've got to keep things slow, keep things paced. But yeah, it's like I said, it's definitely something that I've kept in the back of my mind with training, because like I said, you can get away with doing little as much as you can, you know, having a really fast paced match with loads of moves. So yeah, slow it down. That's probably the biggest piece of advice I've kept.
What are you doing to stay up with your training during all this craziness going on in the world? I'm sure you've kind of had to take a step back in your normal routines, but what are you doing to stay, I guess, ring ready, either physically or just in terms of mental preparedness?
I mean, it'd be ideal to have a wrestling ring in my back garden, but I don't. So it is quite hard, you know, to keep everything that I've learned and, you know, fresh in my mind. So when we do eventually get to go back to training, you know, I haven't forgotten everything. But with training, like, we're constantly told to like keep notes. So I've got like a whole book full of notes I've taken from training that I'm constantly reading. Even just watching wrestling, I feel like it's almost like revision, because you're watching it, you're thinking of stuff that you can maybe, when we get back to training, we can try it ourselves. And in terms of like fitness and stuff, I'm trying best as I can, because obviously all the gyms are closed and stuff. So I'm trying to keep up with like running and stuff like that. So I keep in some sort of decent shape when we get to go back. But I'd say like, yeah, reading over my notes, still watching wrestling as much as I can, you know, watching some of the old stuff. So stuff like that really, because that's probably the only perk of this isolation business, is the fact that, you know, we get the time now to go back and watch some of the older wrestling maybe that we haven't even watched. Like I've been binge watching Nitro, and there's some like episodes of Nitro where I've been watching stuff like with Eddie Guerrero and stuff like that, and I'm seeing moves where I'm like, I really want to try that in training, so go straight in the notebooks, stuff like that. So
So does watching like older wrestling, like wrestling that was happening when you weren't around, does that give you a whole lot more ideas than just watching the current product?
oh yeah, definitely, especially with, because obviously the product now is so different compared to what it was, you know, way back when. And I wasn't a fan during the days of like WCW and you know, during like the 80s and 90s of WWF. So going back and being able to watch those tapes, obviously with like the network and stuff, is really, you know, I'm discovering pretty much like a whole world of wrestling I haven't really watched. And to be honest, it's a treat for me, because some of my favorites like Rey Mysterio, like I've followed through WWE. I've seen glimpses of him in WCW, and I've realized some of his like best stuff is, you know, back in the WCW days. So I get to like watch whole new stuff of him that I've never seen before. So yeah, having that sort of like backlog of wrestling to watch it's quite refreshing, because obviously if the new stuff that's going on right now isn't your taste, then there's a whole like log of wrestling waiting for you to watch. So yeah, there's plenty to pick from, and there's plenty to study from. So it's really, really handy.
So give me three wrestlers who you at least have tried to model, I guess, your style off of. And it can be based on, you know, the wrestling style or personality wise. But Nate, give me three to four wrestlers that you kind of look at as, okay, this is kind of what I want to model myself after.
I'd say like the biggest wrestlers I try and take note of are the ones who have like constantly evolved, and they've always been able to like change their style. So like Chris Jericho is someone I really look up to, because, you know, he's always changing. And then you watch some of his earlier stuff, well, obviously when he was much younger during WCW, and I am a massive fanboy for Chris Jericho, because he brings so much to the table in terms of actually his wrestling style and how he's changed that, as well as his character as well. Like obviously constantly changing between face and heel, and, you know, I really look up to him. So Chris Jericho's definitely one. I say Shawn Michaels as well, because he's a similar sort of guy who's he's always he always changed. He always was able to work really well with whoever he was in the ring with, whether he was face or heel. So yeah, Shawn Michaels is another really and obviously when them two together is like gold dust to me. So watching some of their stuff together is really really good stuff to watch. So yeah, I should definitely try and base this, and maybe someone who's a bit more modern. I quite like Kenny Omega as well, because obviously he's obviously considered one of the best right now, and I completely agree, because he's just got such a versatile style where he can go in there with everyone and he can pull off really good matches, and he's one of those people as well who hasn't really got one set style, so you could quite easily see him flying over the top rope, but at the same time he's got a very strong technical game. So yeah, I'd say probably Chris Jericho, Shawn Michaels, Kenny Omega would be my three I'm basing myself, well, not basing myself off, but looking up to at the minute.
So where do you see yourself in terms of pro wrestling in 5 years? What is what do you hope to accomplish within 5 years in terms of personal accomplishments or places you might see yourself?
I think the main goal at the minute is obviously just getting as much experience as I can. So if that means, once all this is over, obviously I'm training at WAW, but I'd love to, get myself out there and train at other schools as well, just to see obviously what sort of styles they've got. Because, there's some stuff I might not be taught in WAW that I can learn somewhere else, but then at the same time, there's stuff I can bring from WAW to that school as well. So I'd say getting as much experience as I can, working with as many people as I can, because you're only going to get better as, the more matches you have and the more experience you get. So, really, once I get to that level where I'm, in a comfortable spot where I feel like I can go out there and really test myself, I feel like I want to get out there and try out all the indie promotions, in the UK as well as Europe, eventually obviously to the States and stuff like that. I'd love to get myself in that sort of position where I can really explore what's around. Obviously the end goal is obviously maybe getting into one of the bigger companies like WWE or AEW, but I'd say just working towards having as much knowledge as I possibly can, working with as many people as I can, learning as much as I can. It's just that I just really want to be like that sponge who just takes everything in wherever I go, and getting as much experience. And then, yeah, I'd say that's probably the main goal, is just getting out there and performing in front of as many people and performing with as many people as I possibly can.
Well, thank you so much for joining me. Do you have anything that you want to plug, any social media that you want to plug?
I might as well plug my own wrestling account, which is obviously a bit silent at the minute with everything going on, but I'll be posting a lot of obviously my match stuff when I do eventually get to go back to the ring. So Ryan Matthews _WAW. It's also worth shouting out obviously WAW, because even though obviously we're in lockdown and we can't do shows, they're still pumping out loads of good content on YouTube, especially. There's new Bellatrix, which is our female division. There's new shows for that every week, as well as some of the older studio shows that we've produced. So that's constantly being updated. So that's definitely worth checking out. It's the WAW YouTube, as well as the Instagram, Facebook, all that stuff really. And obviously, it's worth shouting out obviously Joseph, who I'll leave you to find his socials for, because I can't remember the top of my head. And Rockstar Rick Parker and Mason, who's going by Jay Devon, but I'll send you his links for that as well. Mm-hmm. They're in a similar spot to me, where they're all, brand new guys, all looking to get themselves out there. So yeah, it's worth watching.
And I'll be interviewing Rockstar Rick Parker this Friday, so look forward to the 4th installment of this series, and hopefully we can get your other stablemate to join in as well. Well, thank you so much for joining me. If you are a pro wrestler and you're looking to possibly get some exposure, or if you're a fan and you want to tell your pro wrestling story, please feel free to send me a message, and I would love to have you on the show. Ryan, it has been an absolute pleasure having you, and I wish you the best of luck as you continue training.
Yeah, thanks a lot. I look forward to watching more of your stuff on your channel. Yeah, it's been really fun.
Awesome. Well, thanks so much, everyone, and have an amazing day. Let's see.